listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs with me, Giles Bidder. This is the place we hear from musicians and artists in their own words about their stories between making albums and going on tour. Our guest today, Vashti Bunyan, might have the singular greatest artist story of our time. In the 1960s, she moved away from her safe suburban home in London with a horse and car, along with her partner, joining a travelling community for 2 years and ending up in the Outer Hebrides up in Scotland. She wrote about her experiences on her first album, Just Another Diamond Day, which was a flop. Nobody heard about it, nobody bought it, until 30 years later. In the early noughties, the record was going for thousands of pounds for this one record. And so she wrote a second one, Lookaftering. And then 10 years later, her third album, Heartleap. And she hasn't written a song since then, since 2014. Her songs are adored by hundreds of thousands of people around the world. Her albums are just lauded over, but she's never had a regular life as a musician. So I wanted to speak with Vashti just before the reissue of that second album, Lookaftering, which is coming out on the 7th of February on Fat Cat Records. So you can pick that up on LP for less than £8,000, which is good for everyone. Here she is on 101 Part-Time Jobs is Vashti Bunyan. If you like this episode, make sure you click subscribe. We're an independent show. We love doing this. We love hearing artists' stories. We love introducing you to records and artists. If you're able to click subscribe and leave 5 stars wherever you're listening to this, on Spotify or Apple or anywhere else, that would be massively, massively appreciated. Thank you. 101 Part-Time Jobs. When I come to Soho now, I think of lining up outside venues in like the noughties, the mid-noughties, and how much it's changed since then.
Right.
When you come to Soho, do you remember?
Oh, so different.
Yeah.
So different. And actually, when I was growing up in London, I wasn't allowed near Soho because it was supposed to be so sleazy and so terrible.
Yeah.
So I wasn't allowed. But then as I got older and with music, I guess I became more familiar with it. And so now when I walk around it, I recognise the buildings, but the shops and the cafes and the bars, everything is so different.
Yeah.
And would I have been allowed here when I was 10, 11? I don't know. Maybe.
You look at sort of, not old footage, but reading about what London was like then, and it was, there was a lot of violence and sort of never do well behaviour.
For the time when I was growing up here, it was after the war, and so there was a huge poverty and ruined buildings, bombed out buildings, and very, very different.
Was there, so I think back to your book, Wayward, which came out a couple of years ago, and that the trip from London to Scotland, which I'm sure you've talked a lot about since releasing that book and reflected on. I wondered if, the thing that I think of is that, could you do that today? Could you live in a bush on the common today?
I wonder. And I often think, if one of my kids wanted to do that, what would I say?
Right.
I think, we lived on so little then. You really didn't need, even to rent a place. I think I was renting a place before I took off for £2 a month. And you didn't have to make so much just to keep going. And I don't know how we did it, but we did.
Do you think that it was easier, so subjective, but do you think it was more accessible to be an artist back then? Because nowadays you need so much money to go on tour, to record in expensive studios.
Yeah.
The record label is probably always taken roughly the same percentages, but just to even be an artist today, you have to have some kind of launch money.
Yes, and well, I suppose it was the same then. You couldn't do anything without a label then.
Okay.
And you couldn't do anything without radio. And that was the thing that really would help to make an artist successful, is to be played on the radio. If you weren't played on the radio,
And I imagine it was, if you weren't on the radio, you weren't on a label, people wouldn't take you seriously.
No.
Which is kind of like a huge part of it, right?
That's right. And if you didn't have a successful single, you didn't get to make an album. And it's so different.
And you've done the inverted model of success, which is release an album, which then gets famous 30 years afterwards.
30 years, yes. Crazy, isn't it? And I would never have expected it to come to anything at all. Yeah. But different generation actually understood it and liked it.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, yeah. Whereas in its own day, it was dismissed as nonsense, Nursery rhymes and kiddie stuff. And and then, a completely different generation actually took it to heart and understood what it meant and what it was meant for.
And even the songs on that first album, they weren't necessarily the way you wanted them to sound like, the arrangements.
No, they weren't.
Talked about that before. And have you learnt to, I don't know, enjoy is the word, or accept is the word?
I've accepted it. I've forgiven it.
Yeah. Well, forgiveness is a big one.
Yes, I know. And it is like, I've said it before, but it is as if it were an orphan child that I completely abandoned, and it came back to find me through no way of my own. It appeared other people found it and brought it back to me. And yes, I still find it quite difficult to listen to, and I understand why it was dismissed in its own day, but I love it for the fact that it is understood and even loved now. I can listen to it more comfortably.
I think there's a lot of artists now, and I think of Naima Bok, who is a great songwriter, and Shovel Dance Collective, who are a great collective of songwriters. How you can hear that sound of your first album in songs that are being written today. Yes.
Can you imagine how amazing that is for me? To hear that there's any influence from that funny little old album to people now.
And we're talking about the songs and the songwriting, but the actual reality of it. What were you spending your days doing? Raising children?
Well, in the intervening 30 years, yes, on the actual journey, it was just trying to keep my dog from getting run over, and finding water for the horse and finding wood for the fire, and all of those things, which really straightened me out.
Semi-normal stuff.
Yes, real practical stuff. And I think that's what I found in that journey, that it was okay to have very little. And going back to your first question, is that possible now? To live the way that I lived then, with hardly anything, just getting along from day to day. But people were kind. Would they be that kind now? I don't know. Some people weren't kind, but the police weren't kind. But
nothing's changed then.
Nothing's changed. Certainly for travelling people, no. It was a great education to understand how travelling people were treated, because we were thought to be travellers, and the police would stop us, and people would report us, and the police would come and be really, really aggressive. And then when they heard that we weren't actually travellers by the way that we spoke, they changed completely. It was just so hideous, so horrible. And so when we did come across travellers, and they were so good to us and so generous, and just the stories, just fantastic. I wouldn't have come across that any other way. So I'm glad I did it.
Storytelling, that seems to be like a currency. I mean, on a much smaller level, I see that in the people that I meet, And when I meet people at gigs, and it's happened since I was a teenager, you know, got quite into punk rock music when I was younger, and I found all my friends going to those gigs. Storytelling was our social interactions.
Right, yeah.
And that's so valuable.
And do you think it's still the same?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
all my friend group
Glad to hear
WhatsApps are like, oh, you never guess what this, or I read this, or have you seen this article?
Right.
That's the stuff that makes me excited. That's why I do this. It's storytelling.
Sharing stories. Yeah.
It's communication.
Lovely. Yeah.
101 part-time jobs. 101 part-time jobs. Traveling and doing that journey, did that put you in a mindset, in a frame of mind that you still live inside today?
Yes, really. Living outside, being vulnerable, being scared. I think about it a lot, and I think about the education that it was, and how lucky I am to be able to walk into a house, close the door, and be safe and warm. And it's still, even though it was just a year and a half that I travelled that first journey, it's still with me completely. And I do think about it a lot. And if I see somebody out in the rain, you know, sitting there waiting for somebody to be generous, you know, I remember. I remember. I think, I'm really grateful that I was able to do that and change my life completely, change my attitude completely, change my mind. Was a really valuable thing for me.
I have to ask, with your accent, did you learn that during those times, or were you brought up with the accent that you have?
Well, I've lived in Scotland now for the last while.
You haven't lost it yet, then, you know.
And yes,
but I mean the polite,
very English, very English. My sister's 5 years older than me, and she moved to New York when she was 19. She's now 85, and she still speaks Queen's English because she left in 1957 and she's never lost it.
Right.
Whereas I grew up with that Queen's English accent. Definitely, if I ever hear something that I said in those days, my God, is that me? But yes, it was. And I'm sure I lost it going along. And certainly,
I don't think you have.
You don't think I have?
You have a very polite voice. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you. You don't hear the Scottish in it? Oh, maybe no, because I've been down here for 2 days. Yeah, I've lost my Scottishness. I don't know.
My mum, who was a journalist who now writes fiction, when she grew up in Harrow and had a bit of a London twang, or however you'd want to call it. And she says now, you know, when she started being a journalist just down the road from here, to kind of be part of the club, to fit in, her voice, you know, tightened up to Queen's English.
Really?
You know, it's a way to fit in.
I
imagine she's not alone. You know, I'm sure loads of people have done that too.
Sure.
Especially in that time when there was kind of, how would you call it, like upward social mobility.
Yes,
Thatcher era, people wanting to make money, buy property.
God, yes, absolutely. Well, my mother, who grew up in Kent, and when we were living in the middle of London, and sometimes the phone would go and she'd say, hello. And then hello, Dot. That was her sister. You know, I loved it. Even from a child, I really loved it. Yeah. That she would go back into that.
Jobs! What were your expectations, or the expectations of you, before you went on that trip? And I want to move away from that time after talking a little bit about this. But you know, it's not lost. I mean, it's such a big thing, going from living a sort of quote unquote regular life to becoming a traveling person, to traveling. So that must have been a huge shift of expectations, both of people towards you, but of yourself.
Oh, shock from my family, that's for sure. Yeah, I think the expectations on me at that time were mostly, get married, you know. get off our hands and just get looked after.
It's kind of sad, isn't it?
Yeah, really. And I wasn't going to do that. And I think after what I felt was my failure to become a pop singer, which I had wanted to be for so long, and the years with Andrew Loog Oldham and recording and not having things released and getting really down about it, and really quite ill, probably. Looking back, I can see how ill I was. But taking off, leaving everything behind, the music, my family, everything, was, at the time, it felt like it was the only thing I could do. And then it turned out to be the best thing I could do. But my family and friends, what on earth are you thinking?
What kind of illness? You mentioned...
Just... looking back now, I know that I was in a terribly deep depression, and it wasn't spoken of then. It wasn't thought to be a thing. Well, but certainly in my family, anyway. But clearly that's what was happening to me, and I couldn't get up. I couldn't get up. I would sleep all day and be awake all night. When I look back, I know that I was becoming quite ill. Prescription drugs from the doctor to try and get me going, and that was awful. It had the totally opposite effect on me. And, I think I was very lucky that I had that opportunity to take off.
Were you writing lyrics then?
Yes, I was. But my partner at the time said, why don't you stop writing these miserable little love songs and start writing about the world around us? And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I didn't start writing miserable little love songs again for another 30 years. It was the right thing at the time. And that's how those songs got written.
There's those lyrics you've got such a wonderful way of being an observer in these songs, but still you're kind of in the center of it. And I wonder if that's something that comes from something neurological or psychological, like depression, where you kind of feel some kind of dissonance.
Yes, and certainly as I was writing more of the songs, it was as if living outside, being just at the mercy of the weather and everything, of the seasons and everything, that I became a part of that world. I felt as if the trees and the roads and everything were all just a part of me, my world, and I was a part of them. And it really helped me to recover something of myself. And it maybe seems, I don't know, a bit daft now, but it was a real feeling. And that's what I think comes across in the songs, that
yeah, absolutely. I don't think you'd make fun of someone who says how much the ocean moves them. Why can't a tree do the same thing? Why can't a great meadow?
Yes,
I've got a great tattoo and that was something when I did some psychotherapy just to try and sort of help me a little bit, in the way that we all need helping with. And when I got the audio that you're supposed to, what they do in psychotherapy, I think most of the time they did for me anyway, was give you a piece of audio that you listen to once a day, and it's kind of a meditation audio. And when I used to kind of zone out in this audio, I sort of imagined a meadow, and so I thought, I really love that picture and my friend.
Great.
And I thought, but that makes me happy,
right?
And so that's why I have that, because it makes me happy. And I think a lot of people stop feeling agency for their own happiness. Either in school or in work or in relationships. It gets kicked out of you. So I think you really have to fight to get that back. I think I did. And I think it was a fight in lots of ways, just to not give up and go home to my mother. And I'm glad I did it. More of a fight than most people have done.
Maybe. Yes. I know from here, it does seem, what a ridiculous thing to do. But it just never seemed ridiculous to me. It didn't feel as if I was going out and doing this crazy thing or this romantic thing. It was just, that's the way it went. Found a horse, found a car. there was the road.
Did you see yourself as a musician, as a professional musician? Do you feel like one now?
Yeah, I do much more now than I ever did. It was what I wanted, but it wasn't anything I achieved. And I would have wanted what I have now, I would have wanted back then. But it didn't happen. And in a way, I'm quite glad it didn't happen then, that I've been able to enjoy it so much more, get so much more out of it, and meet fantastic people this time around, whereas the last time around I was so shy I didn't meet anyone. I just did what I did for myself. So yeah, I'm very lucky that I've been able to enjoy it in this part of my life. Oh, how incredibly lucky is that?
Yeah. And whether you were shy, I feel like the opposite thing happens when you're young, is when you're being arrogant or getting big-headed or thinking the world owes you something.
Yeah. Well, I think I might have gone that way, certainly. If I'd had any kind of success at all, I don't think I'd have handled it well.
And then come to 2005.
Yeah.
You've got the album that's about to be reissued now, just short of your 80th birthday.
Yes.
Wonderful album. Listening today, those songs, they're touching.
Thank you.
Was there pressure making that? Because I want you that first album had sort of just been sort of refound, or maybe even found for the first time.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're told, or the people around you say, okay, hey, maybe you should put out another record. Is that how it happened?
Kind of. It was after Diamond Day came out again, and I got the first royalties. Before that had been £2 and a penny. But suddenly, to get royalties, I bought a Mac and a little keyboard and a mixer and some microphones and stuff, and I started writing songs for the first time since the Diamond Day songs. And
you hadn't written
nothing.
One song?
Not one song. From the time I had my first baby, which was just after Diamond Day, nothing. Not a single thing came through. And I had my last child quite late when I was 41, so by the time he left home to go to college, it was about the time that Diamond Day was coming out. And I'm not proud of that, but in all my child-rearing years, I never wrote another song. As soon as he was gone out the door, up it came again.
Wow.
It was really weird, and I'm not proud of that. A lot of people can do it at the same time as rearing their children, but for some reason, everything I had went into them, and then when they were gone, empty nest is a real thing.
Yeah.
It is a real thing. It's grief.
Yeah.
And maybe getting back in touch with that grief was what brought the songs again.
I mean, I think it'd be fair to be pissed off. You spent all your money raising your kids. At some point they're going to say, bugger off, Mum. Yeah. I'm going to do my own thing. Yeah. I'll let you know when I needed 20 quid.
Exactly.
I'd be pissed off.
Yeah.
And the lyrics came.
And the lyrics came, and being able to play my guitar again, which I hadn't done for 30 years, was just a wonderful feeling. And then just a chain of events of meeting people. I came to meet Dave Howell at Fat Cat after recording with Animal Collective, and just incredible things that happened then. And Fat Cat, when Dave heard my demos, they gave me a deal, and I had to then do it. I had to really come up with something then.
Yeah.
Yes, the pressure. The other pressure I found, people talk about the difficult second album. And because I never knew that anybody had ever heard Diamond Day, that was that. And then when I realised that people actually were listening to Diamond Day and saying great things about it that I'd never heard before, I thought, oh, have I got to do something like that again? And I didn't want to. I wanted drum and bass on it.
Really?
Yeah. Of course it didn't work. And Max Richter, who produced the album, I was introduced to him through Fat Cat, because he had an album with them at the time. And he got it right. You know, that you don't have to think about what Diamond Day sounded like. You just have to do what you're doing now and keep it real. And I think we did.
And that's a job in itself. Mm-hmm. Try not to think about that.
Exactly, not to think about how people are going to take it. Whereas before I didn't care. No.
And you didn't make a rock album.
I didn't. No, I took advice.
I mean, this show is called 101 Part-Time Jobs, and it's about all the things you're thinking about as an artist. I think that so much of music has been kind of held behind this velvet curtain, and for all sorts of reasons, like social media and the way that there just isn't kind of that velvet curtain almost doesn't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. I think it's a great time to find out about artists' stories in their own words.
Right, yes. And I think that's why I am so fortunate, is that I've had a story, as well as the music, that I've had a story that people are curious about, which is very lucky for me. Mm-hmm. And I think if it's, I would love to have been as committed to music as some people are. And not care about what anybody thought of it, never read reviews and all of that. But I'm not. I think, actually, in the last few days speaking to people, I realise how lazy I am.
Do you not need some time to do nothing, but think?
Yeah, but
or not think.
So
I think that's right. Thinking.
Yes, I think so. I was asked recently if I had any advice for people who are starting to make music and write songs and things like that. I think just find a place where nobody is in it. That's the only way, really.
But also people who work at record labels, get them in it, put them in the mix.
Well, maybe no. I found, when I was recording for myself at home, if there was anyone else in the house, however much I loved them, I could not sing. Really? Or I could sing very timidly. But as soon as I had the house to myself, I could sing much stronger and think, and get it how I wanted it. There's always that thought, somebody might be listening, which is why I don't like recording in a studio, because it's time limited, and there's somebody over there listening to me, and I'd much rather do it for myself.
Would you kick people out of the house? Would you kick the kids
I tried not to, but I took the opportunity.
I read that you had a great couple of years in Ireland.
Yeah.
In the early 70s, 70 and 71.
Yeah.
You mentioned this is in an interview from a few years ago, and you said, I want to write about that time. So I wondered if you always write in that way. You're looking back, not in the recent past, but the further. I have the decades past. Really
clear memories of those days. And if you asked me what I did last week, I couldn't tell you. But I do want to write. Well, I've started to write about that Irish time. I was 70, 71, and wow, so, part of it in the south of Ireland, part of it going through the north with horse and wagon. Ooh, incredible people.
What are some memories?
Incredible memories, just of the people we came across, and the fear as well that we came across, and the terrible situations we got in, even with a little kid, that were really dangerous. But I didn't even think of it at the time that it was dangerous. When I think of it now, we could have got shot many times.
the kid was aggressive.
Oh no! That we were vulnerable because we were just two people with horses and wagons and a little kid.
I see,
and so
your baby.
My baby.
Yeah.
And so the thought that some of the scrapes we got into, we could easily have been hurt. And yet there were other times that were just so scintillatingly brilliant, such great memories, and I really want to do that. The fear and some of the aggression and some of the incredibly kind people that we came across, and the music, I would love to be able to write about that.
You've lived such a fulfilling life, and all these stories, they're fluid. You know, they just. I wonder, has it always been that way? Have you had a period of your life that has been dense or maybe even boring?
I don't think I've ever been bored, but there was a time when I moved back into the city from living a long time out in the hills, and me and my partner got together, and he has 3 kids and I had 3 kids, and so my life was completely domestic. And I remember, I think I said it in the book, walking up and down the hall one day thinking, what am I? You know? And I had no idea that anything different was going to happen to me. But then when the music took off and I got back into playing and writing and singing and being with other musicians, it was fantastic. And I remember that time when I had no idea what I was doing, apart from, the washing needs doing, and the stairs need sweeping, and what we're going to have for supper. All of those things. That was, I wouldn't say it was a difficult time, but it was a time when I knew there was something else that I should be doing, that I could be doing, but didn't know how.
That's frustrating. That's a frustrating feeling.
It is. It is a frustrating feeling. But, you know, in a way, it was what launched me into doing something else. And
it put you back into the cycle of...
Yeah, into finding. Somebody told me that Diamond Day was still being listened to, that all the old singles I'd made that were never released were actually available on the internet, you know, and things like that I had no idea.
Yeah.
And that set me on the path to finding my way again.
And that was 30 years ago now. So that point is now the middle of...
Actually, next year it'll be 30 years since I first got on the internet. Typed my name into Alta Vista. It was pre-Google.
Alta Vista?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny.
A long time ago, yeah.
So since then, have you been able to put some kind of routine or schedule into... Because there's no schedule in playing music, is there?
Not for me. And I know people who can go into the studio at 9 o'clock in the morning and work till lunchtime, and then in the afternoon, there's no way I could do that. Well, with kids around, you can't really. But I would love to be able to beat that person. But like I said before, I'm too lazy.
You mentioned earlier like that kind of guilt, and there's you're implying that you feel a little bit guilty about being lazy. I mean, isn't that the beautiful thing about music? Is that you don't have to do anything.
Yes, it must be really difficult to have a contract where you have to do an album every 2 years. You know, how no way. But yes, it took 9 years between my last 2.
And people are buying the records. There are a lot of reissue labels. There's a lot of people shining light on stuff that came out in the last 50 years.
Yes.
And blogs pick it up, and then people of all ages find out about it.
Isn't that great? Isn't that really good? And I often think about all the people of my generation who have not yet been found, and I hope they will be, because there's a way now for them to be found and listened to and valued. I hope it happens to more people.
Are you writing now?
No.
What was the last thing you wrote?
Hartley, and that was 10 years ago.
So you haven't written a song since then?
I've written a book.
It's good. That is a good excuse.
Yeah,
but not a lyric. You don't find yourself writing a lyric into your phone, or a melody comes into your head?
Nope. Nothing. It's a bit like it used to be, that when there was nothing, and I still wait for something to come through. But actually, when I was writing that song Hartley, which was on my very last album, I got the feeling when I was writing it that it was all just coming through so easily, and I think this is what I've always wanted to write. Maybe I'll never have to write anything else. And actually that's what's happened, and that was the last song I wrote. And I would love to write some more. I would love to make some more, and maybe with other people, I don't know, but I haven't. And I'm always waiting, you know. I'm nearly 80 and I'm still waiting.
You're in good health?
More, yeah, fine. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it, isn't it? If you've got good health, that's the thing.
Yeah, the odd hip needing replaced.
There's a song in there, maybe.
Maybe.
A lot of people say when they finish a record, they get scared about not writing.
Really?
Anymore.
Really?
Were you not scared?
I am scared.
You are scared?
I've been scared for 10 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that I do sit down with my guitar every so often. And yes, it is. It's like having a blank piece of paper in front of you if you're a writer. That where does it come from? And it's a bit like PTSD, that actually it is very frightening. I don't know why, and I'm really hoping to get over it. But
so where does that leave you? It leaves you with someone with a great back catalogue, songs that people keep on finding out about, songs that people adore, so you can play live.
Yes.
You can do that.
Yes, I've just been invited to Japan in May.
Yeah, brilliant.
And isn't it brilliant?
Yeah.
I'm so happy about that. I've been before and loved it. But to be asked again just now is lovely, really good.
And the reissue is around the corner now in a couple of weeks.
Yes, it is. And I'm really proud of it. So proud of the way it looks. Yeah. And the fact that I've been able to put the demos out, is just so good for me to have it seen as, I was just making those demos in a room in the house and to have them to be compared with the real one that I did with Max. I really like that. And that my daughter's paintings are in the artwork.
Brilliant.
So they're beautiful.
Oh, that must mean a lot.
Yeah, it does.
Collaborate with your daughter.
Yeah. And one of the reasons we chose some of the paintings was that I would be writing a song and she would be doing a painting, and she would send me a picture of her painting and I would send her the lyrics, and wow.
When was
very
this?
Similar. When I was writing the songs for Hartley, mostly, that there would be similarities in what she was trying to express with her paintings and what I was trying to say with my songs. Was really very lovely, and so that's why we've used some of her paintings in a booklet with the lyrics. And
so she's an artist. Your son, are they all?
My son,
creative?
My oldest son, who lives in California, restores British bikes. Yeah. And my youngest son is a trainer who lives in London. And
what kind of trainer?
Personal trainer.
Okay,
yeah. And wants to specialise in back pain, so that's what he's working on just now.
That's good for the rest of the family.
Yes, it is actually. It's really good. And he's got a little 2-year-old kid who's just absolutely wonderful. But yeah, I think when my daughter is the only one who's taken that path to be an artist, and she wanted that from when she was very little, sort of 7, 8, 9. She knew she was going to go to art school, and she knew she was going to paint, and she's been a painter ever since. She's never done anything else but paint.
Great. And does she inspire you?
Oh yeah, a lot. Yes.
Gives you that sort of fuel to get excited?
Yes. Oh yeah, when I see a new painting she's done, I think, how did she do that? Because she paints with such detail and such incredible love for what she's doing. I'm very proud of her.
A lot of people when they sort of get of pension age, they find time, and a lot of people, a lot of my mum's friends became artists, or they've always been artists, but they started doing art more. Right. And I got myself a little side hustle making websites for them.
Oh,
they didn't know
good.
how to make websites. So
good.
Do you feel like you've had a new life, or yes, a combination of new leases of life over the last 10, 15, 20 years? Certainly
over the last 20 years, definitely. Because it would never have occurred to me that I could step on a stage and sing.
So when was your first show back?
It was at the Festival Hall. I was asked to do 3 songs in a oh goodness, what was his name? The Pavement guy.
Stephen Malkmus.
Stephen Malkmus was doing a meltdown at the festival hall.
Yeah.
And he asked me to do 3 songs. Oh, jeez. That was the most terrifying thing I'd ever done in my life. And I had wonderful people, musicians backing me. But I think they could see that my knees were shaking. I think the first few rows could see my knees were shaking. And it was the first time I'd been on a stage. And I think I have to get over this. Actually, there was one time I went to see some old friends, I think at the festival hall. And I went down to the front of the hall and put my hand up on the stage, and it was that black paint that stages are. I thought, could I ever do this? Could I ever do this? And now I don't even think about it. I just do it, and it's great. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to, that anybody has asked, A few months ago, I think, because I'm still in touch with Andrew Luke Oldham. I think, he's been really great, giving me lots of advice over the years. And I said, I've got another interview this afternoon, another Zoom. Yeah. And he said, one day they're going to stop asking you. Yeah. That brought me up short. And I think, yeah, true. One day they'll stop asking you. So how lucky I am.
That is inspiring that you can go from thinking, I could never do that, to then it becoming normal.
Yes.
I mean, what I see in that is when you say that, it makes someone like myself or anyone listening to this, it's like, oh, well, that's a human thing. Whether it's you feel like you can never drive, you can't do your part, or it's someone, I can never, go on a good date. It's all these things that I think humans, we give ourselves such barriers.
Oh, yes.
Don't we?
Yeah, for a long time, in my case, forever, yeah. And then suddenly, well, not so suddenly, but yes, that things changed. And yeah, when I first started coming back to singing, and I met a friend, I think I was 60-something and she was in her 60s. And I said, she knew what I was doing. And she said, I always wanted to be a singer. And I said, well, why not now? Why not now? Yeah. That it's all right. Mm-hmm. That if you didn't do something when you were young, you can still do it later on. And yeah, I wish that she would.
And just to end this great chat, I mean, thank you so much for giving me your time today.
Oh, well, thank you.
How do you see success? What is success to you?
Oh, that's something I really don't know, because I really don't believe it. When somebody says, oh, I read your book, or somebody says, oh, I know your album, I think, how? I still don't have that feeling that anybody knows anything about it. And just the other day in Edinburgh, going up the stairs in the station, somebody turned around and said, are you Vashti Bunyan? Yeah. And he had seen me somewhere doing something or other, and that was the first time ever that somebody had recognised me. And I thought, how did that happen? It was extraordinary, just a few weeks ago. And no, I don't feel... I don't have that word success in my mind. I only have fortunate, grateful, lucky, and yeah, lucky.
I should ask you, being 101 part-time jobs.
Yes.
What other jobs have you had in your life?
I was an assistant to a vet in London for not very long.
Yeah.
Looked after various people's shops. I had a market stall, and that was a long job, actually. That was great, really good.
What did you sell on that, on the stall?
Used to go around the farms picking up all old things and selling them on a market stall in St Andrews in Scotland.
Yeah,
that was a good job. That was
uni
great.
Students.
Sorry?
To the university students?
No, it wasn't. No, no, not usually. It was usually visitors to the town.
Yeah. People want to leave with a
with
memory.
Something. Yes. Yeah. And that was good. And then many years restoring antique furniture. That was quite a job.
What do you go about? What's the first thing you do when you restore furniture? Obviously, you clean it up and
strip it.
Okay.
Yes, strip it right down, give it a new life. Absolutely. And I liked that. Yeah. That things that would be burned or discarded in some way would be rescued.
Well, they have stories.
Stories. Mm-hmm. They really do. And when I lived up a mile up a track and dealing in furniture and restoring furniture, we had a big old shed, and it was full of bits of furniture we'd bought from here and there and farms and old stuff. And sometimes I could not go into that shed because of all the stories that they were trying to tell me. It became a bit of a phobia, really, that all that furniture, they all had so many families in them.
Well, it was just overwhelming.
It overwhelmed me, yeah.
They were shouting at you.
That sounds daft, doesn't it? But they were.
I understand it.
Yeah.
I think. Because you walk into somewhere and you think, okay, there's too many things to think about here.
Yeah, too many people shouting at you from the walls.
I've got a great small story, and I think you'll like this, is that when my parents divorced and I moved with my mum, we had this great pew, quite small wooden pew, kitchen table pew. When I was about 12 years old, I jumped on it and I cracked a bit off, and everyone was angry at young me. And then when me and my mum moved out, we moved to this new house, and we thought, okay, well, let's go down to the charity shop. We need to get a breakfast bench again. 10 years later, this was 10 years after my parents broke up, we went to this charity shop, or an antique shop. It was quite fancy in the home counties. And we saw this pew, and I was like, that's the break. That's the break that I snapped off that was glued back together. So we bought it back.
Oh, nice.
I don't know where it is now. Because she's moved since. But that's like a nice, there's something warming in that.
Yeah, it was waiting for you.
I can't really quite put my finger on why that's special, Obviously, it's a nice little coincidence, but there's something sort of bigger than that.
Well, there was your story in it that you got into trouble.
Yeah, I think so. Done that enough times.
Yeah. Oh,
what was the biggest work mistake that you made?
Work mistake? Oh, probably working for that vet, because he was dreadful. Animals kept dying under his hands.
Oh no.
Yeah. So that was probably the worst job I ever had. But, I would never do that again.
That's a big task, being a vet's assistant.
Oh, being a vet's assistant, yes. Yeah, oh, no, never again.
Well, Matt, now you probably know a lot about horses.
I didn't know anything about horses when we first got Bess, but, she taught. She really did teach, and... yeah, what a wonderful creature she was. Yeah,
that's nice. Do you feel a connection with horses when you?
I do now, yes, because I don't see them very often. But I did, when I lived a mile up that track. I had Clydesdales and a Shetland, and just lovely creatures.
Majestic.
Yeah. Bit dumb. The Clydesdales. The bigger they are, the dumber they are.
So there was my chat with Vashti Bunyan. Her second album, Lookaftering, is getting its re-release 20 years after the fact on the 7th of February. That will be available from Fat Cat Records. It's nearly her 80th birthday as well. I really, really enjoyed that. If you did too, make sure you click subscribe. If you're able to leave a review as well, that would be massively appreciated. And we appreciate you. We'll be back next week with episodes with Mogwai. I'm speaking to Stuart Braithwaite on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we're going to be hearing from some promoters and venue workers and agents from independent venues and organisations. That's going to be part of our Beavertown sponsorship of Independent Venue Week. On Thursday, we'll be hearing from Greg Freeman. And on Friday, we'll be hearing from Prima Queen and Opus Kink to do with Independent Venue Week and Beavertown as well. So hopefully, we'll see you then. And before I go, if you have a work story you want to share with me, write in at giles@mightymoonmedia.com. I want to hear about your work fuck-ups. I want to hear about the best days that's ever happened to you at work. Email me, giles@mightymoonmedia.com, and I'll read them out in upcoming episodes.
101 Part-Time Jobs is hosted by Giles Bidder and produced by me, Olivia Swash. This has been a Mighty Moon Media production.